Hello, everyone. The controversial bill signed by Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky is blowing up in his face. Remember, I told you yesterday, personally, I disagree with it. That is a thoroughly bad decision. And it had sparked an entire wave of protests of Ukrainian people who trusted this president to look after them at the time of war and are now concerned about the integrity within their own government. That tells you something how important this is to them. That at the time of war, and I mean, just in a very basic way, when they know that large congregations of people are targeted by the Russians, they came out to protest this new bill. So, what is this about? Let's break this up a little bit. The concern there is that the bill aims to dismantle the independence of the operations of two anti-corruption bodies in Ukrainian government, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. So the concern there is that these two organizations kind of had their own jurisdiction. They were like a separate branch of the government. Like the Supreme Court, for example, is a separate branch of the US government, although right now it doesn't show as much, but it's supposed to be. So imagine if we had a branch of the government whose job was to investigate corruption, regardless of who committed it, which party, which time, which motive, doesn't matter. That is what they do. And because of the nature of their work, makes sense, they should be free of political influence and of the pressure from the parliament and the office of the president. They should be able to get the materials they need. They should be able to interview witnesses. They should be able to get the evidence. You see where I'm going with this. And so now the concern is that these two organizations are not going to be able to do their job. And when asked why this is important, Ukrainian people were pretty clear. They pointed out, we were dealing with corruption when we overthrew Yanukovych because he had sold out to Russia. So this does tie in to the war. We have been fighting this forever. This issue undermines our position as a country in the international arena. This is why we're not being accepted into NATO. This is why we're not being accepted into EU. It's a little bit simplifying it, but it is high on the list. We talked about the memberships yesterday about this and corruption. So, and now here you are dismantling the effort that we have already put in over the last 10, 11 years to show that we're capable of fighting corruption. And we're fighting a fucking war. Are you goddamn crazy? So the article I'm sharing right now has links in it. This is on Kyiv Independent website if you want to read the details, because I need to touch upon other things. So, if you want details, pop over there and read the whole thing to fully understand the details. Now, Zelensky is saying that he is hearing the community, he's hearing the people. He promises them the anti-corruption plan within the next 2 weeks, but people are asking, why did you sign the goddamn thing in the first place, considering the bill was extremely unpopular? Considering there were already protests and requests to veto it should the parliament pass it. because Zelensky had a chance to hold it up. He had a chance to veto it and send it back. In that sense, this works much like it does in the United States, but he didn't. So now he has to scramble to come up with a convincing anti-corruption initiative to pacify the people while he's trying to have the peace talks with Putin in Turkey, and while we still have the war going on. So you can see why this is a mess. And this is what I have been talking about the entire time when I pointed out that no, Zelensky is not my first or even second or third choice of a leader in this situation. Yes, I will grant him credit where credit is due. He has done a lot of growing up in the last 3.5 years. I agree. But as a statesman, as a leader, he still has a lot to learn. And sadly, instead of surrounding himself with people who are truly experts in some of the most complex government affairs, such as finances, such as statesmanship, such as corruption, such as economy, he brought on his TV buddies. And that was stupid. And this is exactly why I frequently say I do not like him. I will agree with him when he makes sense. I will agree with him and give him credit when he does something worthy. This wasn't it. Now, obviously, we are also watching Turkey as the delegations arrive there. And I would like to once again remind everybody that Erdogan is really nobody's friend. Would he rather have Ukraine as his northern neighbor across the Black Sea than Russia? Yes. Ukraine is a lot easier to deal with than Russia, and it's a lot less of a threat. That said, would he also like the prestige of hosting the peace talks? Of course. So, right now it's just pleasantries. It's expressing appreciation for Turkey for being the host, all of that. But are we going to see any results? I don't know. It's going to depend on who is there. So, Ukrainian delegation is led by National Security and Defense Council Secretary Rustem Umerov. So, he's pretty high on the totem pole. We don't know yet who is included in the Russian delegation. And again, the concern is that the Russian delegation never includes anybody high enough to make real decisions. Now that the weapons are slowly starting to trickle back to Ukraine, Ukraine's Army Commander General Syrskyi is stating to the United States that we don't just have to stop Russia, we have to push Russia back to Russia. We have to get them off the Ukrainian territory, preferably permanently. To emphasize his point, he pointed out that a tiny group, a comparatively tiny group of Ukrainian military managed to inflict 80,000 casualties during its foray into Russia's Kursk region, which took place about a year ago. Now, he also should release the number of Ukrainian casualties, but I can guarantee you that it wasn't 80,000 simply because Ukraine didn't have that many to spare. So it was really, really a very small group of soldiers that went there to begin with. So his point is that look what we were able to do while being slammed all the time with a small group of soldiers. Can you imagine what we can do if only everybody pulled together? Case in point, in terms of doing more with less, there's been allegedly another strike on a logistics center by Ukrainians. This is in the city of Novocherkassk in the Rostov region, which is one of Russia's border regions with Ukraine. More to come.